Going on, gents? Rizzo back with the Gentleman's Corner, and today is kind of a long overdue gripe session, so to speak. This pretty much my top 5 things that bother me or that annoy me within the fragrance community, or just things that really kind of bother me just in general with the fragrance community. All right, so I'm gonna go like from worst, well, not really worst to the thing that bothers me the least, all the way to the thing that bothers me the most. So, number 5, repetition of fragrances and them getting like over 1,000 views, and the newer fragrances that people introduce, they barely get like 100 views. I'll notice that certain reviewers will put out a fragrance that's been done 1,000 times, such as Jean-Paul Gaultier, and boom, within like 2 days it's already got 1,000 hits. And then you got somebody like Bottom Note or Coach Rob or myself that'll put something out that hadn't been done nearly as often or even done at all, like Bleecker Street or Divine Loam Sage or HIM by Hanny Marie, and it's like we barely break 100. And it's kind of annoying because it's like, do you want us to introduce you to newer fragrances, or would you like to smell like the same John Doe and smell like everybody else, or keep getting the same kind of feedback and content put out? Because it's kind of like you already know what you're going to get. Every now and then you might get an oddball or a curveball where somebody disagrees with the majority, but for the most part you already know certain fragrances are home run hitters. It's just that some people love them way more than others. Like I say, Jean-Paul Gaultier, everybody knows that that's a classic. I myself don't care for it, but it's still a classic, period. So it's just like, why, continuously like watch the same stuff over and over? Now I can see in the headlines, if it was like something like what Coach Rob did when it was "Don't Believe the Hype," that's a little bit different. That's a completely different spin on it, because he's going to give you an honest opinion as to whether or not you should go out and put your money on it. But just a simple, normal, just run-of-the-mill review, I don't see the significance of it, of the thousands and 2,000s and 20,000 views, when you already know, the notes, the breakdown, the longevity, that from watching the video like 1,000 times. So, that's an annoyance for me. All right, number 4. Number 4 is older reviewers downplaying the newer reviewers, and this one and my number 1 will kind of tie in to the same. The issue that I have with the older reviewers, and not all of them do this, is that they feel as though they're on some sort of pedestal. And don't get me wrong, I will give pay homage and pay credit to them and the idea or the ideology of, hey, nobody else was doing this, I came up with this great idea to do it, and I blazed the trail, and now I have kind of like offsprings, and that's great, but the problem lies when you shout somebody out, or you PM them, or you ask them for feedback, and it's kind of like they never respond. They kind of turn a blind eye to you. They don't really acknowledge you, or even in their videos, they'll get on their videos and they'll say, well, I haven't really seen any of these new guys. I don't really know any of these new guys, I don't really watch their videos. That's kind of like a slap in the face to us, because it's just like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? It's just, it annoys the shit out of me, and it downright pisses me off, because I understand like you blaze the trail, but don't discredit me and my work. You see what I'm saying? That's just like, I understand that that there was, that Michael Jordan was the greatest of all time, but at the same time, how dare you discredit Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant? You can't discredit those guys. Those guys have natural talent. You know what I'm saying? I understand that there was Walter Payton, but you can't discredit Arian Foster, Adrian Peterson. You know what I'm saying? So that really gets underneath my skin. And the reason why I say that, because I know myself, as well as some other reviewers, we have shouted out, older reviewers, or we've PM'd older reviewers, and ask them for feedback, or try to do collabs with them, or just whatever. And it's kind of like they were looking at us like they were on celebrity status, and like, who are you? And I just want to say, like, let's not forget, we are all, I don't think nobody's a celebrity in the fragrance reviewing game. We're all just, people and average Joes. At least I am. I'm still a down-to-earth kind of person. All my subscribers can vouch for that. I'll talk to any and everybody. So, yeah. Number 3. My number 3 is kind of interesting, and I don't want anybody to get offended by this. But it's people taking the cheap road, or always being cheap when it comes to fragrances, and they call themselves a collector. Now, with that being said, I don't want anybody who's on a budget to take offense. This is not for you if you're on a budget. This is for those put it like this. This reminds me of back in the day when I was hanging with some of my friends, my homies, and they would actually come and kind of like raid my collection, not take anything, but they'd always want to get them a few sprays before they're going out. And it's kind of like, I'd ask them, like, man, why you don't buy you a bottle? And be like, man, I ain't spending that kind of money on that. You see what I'm saying? It's just like they want it, but they don't want to spend the kind of money on it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you have to go out and be a collector myself, but if you are going to call yourself a collector, you can't always try to take the cheap route out. Now, there are certain things that I will say that they aren't worth the money. Coach Rob will say the same thing. They aren't worth the money. They aren't worth the hype. And you should find an alternative. However, it's just certain things that, in my honest opinion, they are unique and you won't smell anything like them, so you have to fork over that kind of money. Now, in the same instance, does that mean that you have to go and, put yourself in a bind and go and do this massive niche haul and get about 30 bottles where they, each bottle is like $250? No, if you can't afford it, save up and, get it when you can. Just be aware of your own financial status, but at the same time, like I say, don't always take the cheap route out. You see what I'm saying? Like certain things, like, all right, Millesime Imperial, I love it, but there are a few alternatives to that. You have the Sean John Unforgivable, and you have the Ed Hardy Love and Luck. Now, if you're just a collector and you just have to have it, then by all means get Millesime Imperial, but just know that there are cheaper alternatives. Now, also Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille is a cheaper alternative with lots of times Eau de Bois. However, you have some fragrances, there are no cheaper alternatives, such as Hermes, Amber Narguil. I know I've tried 1,000 times. I've asked everybody, like, is there an alternative to this? Is there an alternative to this? And everybody's come to the same consensus. They have fragrances that come close, but it's just that unique. It's just that one-of-a-kind fragrance. I know that some people will say that the New Harlem has alternatives, and that's fine. And I've smelt the Michael Jordan Legends and the Rocas, man, and like they have a certain thing about them, but I still think that New Harlem smells in and of its own. Same thing with Reflection Man. I'm trying to think of another one. Also, what's the other one? Original Velveter. There's an alternative to that. It's Mugler Cologne. Now, with that being said, Amen, Pure Malt, Pure Havane, you won't find anything, that smells identical. So you have to fork over that $90 or however much it costs or whatever. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that you have to just go, everybody should just, put themselves in a financial bind, and then just because they don't want to be labeled as cheap. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, don't just sit up here and, like, if you know that you can afford it, like, just sit up here and be like, well, I ain't gonna buy that. I don't want to spend that kind of money. It kind of goes along with that saying, you have to pay the cost to be the boss. So that's my issue, because I know some people, they have things to where they have a budget, they have a family and everything like that, and that's great. I'm not even knocking those guys. Some people are just, they have a budget, and that's cool. This is not for you. These are for the people that have no responsibilities, or who have responsibilities and have a ton of money that's left over, but they just want to be cheap about it. So that's my issue with those guys. All right, number 2. Number 2 was almost my number 1, but I found something that pissed me off just a little bit more than my number 2. My number 2 is people disliking videos. And the reason why that this annoys me, my wife and I were talking, is because you have a lot of John or Jane Does who just sit behind a computer and for whatever reason they dislike a video. And the thing about that is, if you disagree with somebody, that's one thing, that's fine. You know, just move on. But it annoys me when people sit up here and they watch the complete video and then wait to the end and hit a dislike button. And it's like they have no legitimate reason for disliking. If you and I share a difference of opinion, then I'll either comment or PM you or something like that and keep it moving, or that's about it. I just keep it moving. I watch the next video, but I won't sit up here and dislike your video because that's your opinion. Now, if I were saying something that is culturally or racially or genderly disheartening or disrespectful, such as like I'll take my race. If I said, oh, all black people are stupid, then you have all the right in the world to dislike that video because that's racially stereotypical, that's wrong, that's immoral. By all means, hit the like button 1,000 times, hit it till you can't hit it anymore. But just because if I say like, oh, I don't like Azaro Chrome, it stinks to me, and you sit up there and you hit the dislike button, that's, to me, that's taking a cheap route. That's that's ludicrous. It's crazy to do that. We don't share the same opinion. Our noses are different, our age group is different, our skin tone might be different, our taste in women might be different, whatever. But I don't think that gives anybody the right to push a dislike on a button simply because you disagree with what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? Especially me. I always ask for your honest opinion. PM me, leave a comment, feedback, whatever. Because just because I don't like it and I give my honest review, you might be able to give a good spin off of somebody who wants to find a happy medium, who's watching my video, but at the same time, if they read your comment as to why you liked it, they might be like, well, I might want to give it a shot. So don't just be so quick to hit the dislike video just because you disagree with what I'm saying, or anybody for that matter. And finally, my number one thing that annoys me with the fragrance community and that just really gets underneath my skin and really pisses me off is when people make these videos, or I've seen videos and comments when they say certain people are their top reviewers of all time. And I have to tie this back to the thing about number 4 when I say older reviewers are downplaying the newer reviewers. And this is why this pisses me off so bad, is because you have people coming into the fragrance reviewing game like almost daily. And to sit up here and say that somebody's your favorite reviewer of all time, you haven't seen all of what's out there. I feel like if you make a who's my favorite reviewer, of 2012, or who's my favorite reviewer of each year, or just the fall, the winter, then that's fine. But to say that somebody's your favorite reviewer of all time is kind of crazy. You see what I'm saying? Because now, don't get me wrong, I know that I've been watching fragrance reviewers for a long time, even before I even decided I want to become a reviewer. I'm talking about the Color Supreme SLs. We're talking about the TW Westcott Tim, Mark, of course, Al with aka Fragrance Fanatic 1, Cody, Drag Doc, and also Cubby. Even I think Cubby was the first one to even do this. But at the same time, and they have their own category. They're some of the first ones to do this. But at the same time, I don't feel as though, any reviewer, any subscriber can sit up here and say that, they're the greatest of all time because, yeah, they were the forefathers of this. But I feel as though, not even myself, yeah, I feel like I provide something to the game. But at the same time, you have Franchise who puts out great content. The Lupe Experience, he reviewed a full house of the Killian line. He gave you in retrospect, and each one of it was like well done. It wasn't like half-assed or anything. So he provided something very great to the community, and I think he does like complete houses. Bottom Note. How could you not love Bottom Note? He puts out skits for everybody. Your kids could watch this. High schoolers can watch this. You can put this on your mom. No profanity. His video editing skills are second to none. And of course, Coach Rob, who's like my brother from a different mother. His ideas were through the roof. I think he probably challenged over half of us. We're talking about the Don't Believe the Hype series, the alternative series, the finding cheaper fragrances, and it's just like everybody that I just named. Of course, you know, myself, I feel as though I provided like a gentleman or a grown man's aspect to a lot of this. Myself as well as Alex. I don't want to forget him either. Masters of Style. And so, like, to say that the forefathers were your favorite reviewers of all time without even like crediting some of the newer reviewers is kind of ludicrous to me. And I'm not even saying like the buck just doesn't even stop with us. I'm talking about it might even be somebody that comes along even after us. You know what I'm saying? It's just like saying that, all right, the greatest player in the world was Wilt Chamberlain. But then after Wilt Chamberlain, you just stopped watching basketball. And of course, after Wilt Chamberlain came Michael Jordan. Okay, well, I'm not going to watch basketball again. But then after Michael Jordan came Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. You see what I'm saying? Like, it just keeps evolving. So I don't feel like you can say that, you know, these are my favorite reviewers of all time, because you never know the next level of talent that's going to come, you know, blazing through your YouTube screen or blazing at your door. So that is the number one thing that pisses me off. And like I say, it ties into number 4, because what'll happen is you have subscribers who make these lists and who make these videos and who comment on, you know, the older reviewers' pages, and then you have the older reviewers who, by the way, have not responded to us, you know, or left any feedback to us, but they'll comment on that subscriber's page and be like, yeah, I don't really pay attention to these young guys. I don't know these guys. And 9 times out of 10, half of us have been wearing cologne way before them, or, you know, because I know that Bottom Note, he's you know, he's an older gentleman, and I'm pretty sure he's like has some serious experience in wearing cologne. And then, you know, just to like discredit him because, you know, he wasn't the first person in front of a camera or first person on YouTube is kind of crazy. You see what I'm saying? He could probably tell us about some of the fragrances that was like back in the 80s. So that's my biggest pet peeve. I'm like I say, if you're gonna do something like that, I say like do it your favorite reviewer of the year or your top, you know, reviewers of, you know, the moment or whatever. But don't just say these are my favorite of all time, and then next thing I know, I see like all the forefathers of fragrance reviewers. Like, that really pisses me off, because it just basically, and if anyone gets offended, you know, mute your computer, but basically just shits on everything that, you know, myself as well as Coach Rob, Frank, and like all the newer generation reviewers are doing. So without further ado, I think that's the end of my gripe session. But be on the lookout for some reviews. I have a ton of them coming up. Shouts out to my boy Coach Rob. I'm gonna have to reshoot my Tonka Imperial video. Without further ado, I'm gonna give a shout out to Phi Beta Sigma Blue Phi. Hoo-yah Navy. Peace. Talk to you later, gents.